Hello and welcome back to Being Black with Camille Smith. Today we are welcoming Chidinma Chioke, senior at Villanova University studying finance, and she'll actually be graduating in May, and I'm super proud of her. After she graduates, she will be working at McKinsey & Co., which is the largest global management firm in the world. And there she hopes to work in the education space because that's what she's most passionate about. Chi Chi and I've known each other for I feel like a long time because she's such a powerhouse. But we actually met officially through Maciel, who's my close friend, our mutual friend that I talk about. I feel like in almost every video that I've recorded thus far. We've been friends ever since, and I'm super excited to have Chi Chi on. Without further ado, Chi Chi, what does being Black mean to you?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me on the show. Um, I'm super excited to be here. And I guess to your question, what does it mean to be Black? So, for context, I grew up in Nigeria. I was born here, and I only moved to the States for college like 3.5 years ago. And I think growing up in a country that was predominantly Black, my identity, like being Black, wasn't something that was necessarily part of my identity. Like it was like when I introduced myself, it wasn't, oh, like, this person's Black or that person's white. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm from this part of the country. And within the Nigerian context, that too has its own baggage because of tribalism and like the history of Nigeria. So that really was my own identity. It was more of like, I'm an Igbo girl from the eastern part of the country. And it really only wasn't until I moved to the States in 2017 that, I began to understand that, like I always knew I was Black, obviously, because I'm Black, but it was never something that was consciously part of my identity because everyone around me was Black. And, when I entered, predominantly white spaces in the US, it was something that did take some time for me to, grasp and understand what that meant. Because I think it's very clear, like, at least from my own perspective, that being Black in Nigeria and being Black in a school like Villanova are two very different things, and they come with very different. People perceive you differently, for better or for worse, and so it did take some time for me to understand what that meant within the context, and surround myself with other Black women to support me and help me figure that out as I navigated that space. But I think being Black is something to be proud of. Being Black and successful is something to be proud of because I think globally, I think a lot of systems are put in place that institutionally disadvantage Black people. Um, and so whenever I see Black people succeeding, I'm like, yes, you did that despite all the odds. Like you made it. And so I think it's something to be proud of. I think we have such a rich and beautiful heritage that should make you smile, make you happy, and should motivate you because I think you're worthy of all that success and happiness as a Black person. So that's what it means to be Black to me.
And to go a little bit into that too, so coming to the States, coming to Villanova for college, do you have kind of a first concrete memory of someone giving context to being Black, or like when you first realized, like, oh, being Black does mean something different here?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's pretty much started during orientation as a freshman. So I guess for context, for people who aren't from Villanova, when you come in as a freshman, you usually come in like 3-4 days before the other students for freshman orientation. And I think I got in the day it started, straight from Nigeria. Like my flight was delayed, so I literally arrived the day of, and like was rushing, super tired, exhausted, jet lag, the whole shebang. And so I joined my orientation group for dinner because the orientation groups are all like freshmen from the entire class, but they just kind of broke us up into different groups. And then someone made a comment. They're like, "Your English is so fantastic," and in my mind, I was like, "Huh?" Like, okay, like I don't know what that means or whatever. Moving on. And then I got the same comment the next day, like, "Your English is so fantastic. Like, where are you from?" And I was like, "Huh? Like, what do you mean my English?" Like I is literally so confused. And I kept wondering like why do people keep asking me this or telling me this as if it's like a compliment. Like I went to school, from elementary school through high school. Like why is that a surprise that I speak well? Um And I think, what really, an incident that followed right after that, just really woke me up. I was like, wow, like I'm in a different environment now. So my first day of school, I was super excited. So I wore if anyone's familiar with like Ankara prints, like that's like the cultural fabric, like in like most African countries or Nigeria. So I had a dress, just to celebrate the first day of college. I was super excited. I was in the business school. And so I wore that, and I had like heels on because I'm just that type of person, to be honest. I was wearing heels on the first day of class. And so I walked to the business school. Everyone's staring at me. I'm like, well, okay, I guess they think I'm pretty or something. And then I go to class. My first class, it was business dynamics. I won't forget. And so, I was the only Black person in the class. I was like, well, okay, this is new, but whatever. And so I sat in the front of the class, and the teacher, came into class. Everyone did their little introductions, and he, put a question up on the board and said he wanted to hear everyone's perspective. But he said he didn't want the class to get rowdy, so he was just gonna call on everyone. He called on everyone except for me, and I was sitting right in front of the class, and I was like, this is weird. I don't know what's going on. Like I was wearing bright prints. There is no way you would not have seen me. And so at the end of the class, I walked to the professor. I was like, why didn't you call on me? Like, what happened? He's like, oh yeah, like I didn't even see you there. And I was like, excuse me? What do you mean you didn't see me there? I was the only Black person in the class. And I was just like, wow, this is a very different environment. Like it's not as I think that was the first time it dawned on me, being a Black person, one, being a Black woman, two, being an African person, three, within a context of, within a society that's predominantly white, like you have to assert yourself. You have to be borderline aggressive. Otherwise, people are going to take you for granted. Otherwise, you will be unnoticed. Your successes and everything you achieve will not be, I guess, acknowledged almost. So I think, to be honest, like that situation just like sparked this fire in me. I was like, I'm gonna show you, like you're messing with the wrong girl. And I think I was able to have that level of confidence, because I grew up in an environment where everyone I knew that was successful was a Black person. And so it was very surprising. I was like, why is this white man professor doubting me? Like, literally just, it really startled me. Like, I think for the rest of that day, I was really shook. But it did spark a fire in me. And I think, like, if you go to Villanova, Chichi, like, I'm kind of all over the place doing stuff. And I think it was those early memories of feeling unnoticed, that I think I made it a point of effort to make sure you notice me, because I know I'm a smart person. I know I'm a compassionate person. I know I'm a good leader. And I deserve all the acknowledgement and recognition because I work hard to achieve those things. And so I also made it a point of effort that for myself, I would make sure that, especially within the business school, that every other Black student got the opportunity to feel noticed and acknowledged and recognized. And so that's when I started NABA at Villanova. So NABA is the National Association of Black Accountants. And it really is just an organization to support Black students within VSB and provide them with like all the resources they need academically, financially, socially, and otherwise. We're actually going to be 2 years in March. It really is one of my biggest achievements. I'm really excited about it because I've seen that, I saw a lot of people who struggle, a lot of Black students struggle in VSB, not because they weren't intelligent, not because they weren't smart, but because there was no support system and no one could see that they needed help and no one cared to or bothered to help. And it's made a huge difference. I think if you even for me, like even though I was one who led or initiated it within business school, I think it's taught me a lot about how far just supporting someone and telling someone I believe in you can go.
So again, as you can see, Chi Chi is a powerhouse. I do want to hear a little bit more about like how was it growing up? I think a few minutes ago or a few seconds ago when you mentioned that like everyone that you knew growing up that was successful was Black. Talk a little about like how was it growing up?
Of course. So for some background, my grandparents on my mom's side were both teachers. And my grandfather on my dad's side was also a teacher, so education was something else prioritized. Like in my household, we could not be slacking at all. Otherwise, my mom was just gonna, crazy mom. So there's 5 kids in my house. And I mean, I will say everyone's pretty much an overachiever, and like we kind of sharpened ourselves. Everyone did really well in school. My older brother went to Penn, my older sister went to Villanova, I went to Villanova, and my other 2 sisters went to Fordham, and they all work at like Fortune 500 companies now. And so for me, that gave me a lot of like energy. I was like, oh my God, look at all my siblings. I can do this too. Like, of course I can. And I also, the high school I went to, so it's called Loyola Jesuit College. It's a Jesuit secondary school that was built by the American Jesuits in Nigeria. So, I mean, to be honest, it is one of the best secondary schools in the country. Like, people would call it the Andover, if you're familiar with like prep schools in the States, the Andover of Nigeria. So growing up, my formative years from 11 to 17 were spent with some of the most intelligent kids in Nigeria. So the culture of excellence and going for like what we called it was going for the magis. That's the Latin word for the more. Always going for the more in whatever you did. It's something that just like is ingrained in my system. Like in whatever room I enter, it's like no, I have to be the best at this thing. Like, and my competition was never necessarily like, oh, I'm competing with the next person here. It's like, what is what is the bar for excellence? That's my competition. Like I'm not competing with anyone because I think honestly competing with other people, you kind of limit yourself because you never are able to untap your full potential. But anyways, so I think having that background, growing up around this, and it was a boarding school, so I spent like 10 months out of the year there regularly. And a lot of people I met there are actually still some of my best friends. And so growing up there and then having the strictness and of my family members and like everyone is such a badass, you know, I never for once doubted my abilities. Like every time my parents, my mom particularly, always told me, like every time we come home for like breaks and stuff, like every time we were leaving, she'd always tell us, like she was kind of dramatic about it, but like she'd be like, look at like the whole sky can be yours, like the whole everything can be yours if you work hard. Like it's within reach. And so having that mindset, like I was just like, I can do this. Like there's nothing stopping me from doing anything. Like any hindrance I have is in my mind. And I think again with the right support, with the right people around you, you can always break those down. So I will say that I had a lot of privilege in that sense. And I came in with that confidence into Villanova, into America. And I think that did help me a lot. Because I think when talking with a lot of my peers, they didn't have similar experiences. Like my dad, before he passed, like had his own company. My uncle had his own company. My mom has her own company. Everyone around me has their own thing going on, and pretty successful businesses too. So I kind of grew up around people working hard and being successful and like continuing at that and never settling for the bare minimum. Um, so and I look back and I'm really grateful because I think it did instill a lot of discipline in who I am today, and I think it's what's carried me so far and like all my achievements and things I've done so far.
So do you have any advice for your younger self?
Sometimes you're going to fail, to be honest. I think growing up, all through like elementary school, I was like, the smart kid in the class. Like that was kind of my identity. Went into secondary school, the smart kid in class, student president, did all these things. Um, and at some point in college, I struggled. Like even though like many people may not believe that, but I did. I really did struggle. I started to question who I was and if I was still the person I thought I was. So I had a lot of like an identity crisis there going on. But and I realized, you can't be defined by your failures. If you're like my mom told me, if you're not failing, it means you're not trying hard enough, or you're not your dreams aren't big enough. So that's a mindset that I have now, and something I learned too is I actually read this somewhere not too long ago where it said, I think it was from Tyler Perry, not sure, don't quote me on that. He said, failures and successes are pretty much the same thing because, in every success, it's not just a success, you have to learn for yourself, why was I successful and how can I repeat this? In every failure, what can I learn from this to make sure this never happens again? So both a success and a failure are both learning opportunities. And I think having that mindset just liberates you because it's like, well, I might fail, but I will learn something from this. And I'm gonna try again. And what I've learned, I'm gonna take it and not make the same mistake again, and keep trying until I get it right. Um, so yeah, I think that's the advice I'll give my younger self, because I think there's a lot of things growing up I didn't try because I thought I was going to fail, and I always wanted to be, the best person at everything and be the perfect, A student at everything. But I look back and I wish I was a little bit more adventurous and allowed myself to fail. And honestly, I think failure builds character, to be honest. um, in a lot of ways that people are not very honest about. So yeah, I think that's the advice I give my younger self. It's okay to fail. You're not less of a human being because you failed.
I can definitely relate to that. I feel like I definitely did not try a lot of things when I was younger because I was like, I'm not gonna be that good at it. Like I don't really like it anymore. Um, so very good advice. You're just dropping bombs, and we haven't even gotten to our conversation yet. I'm hyped. And today we're gonna be talking about being Black and African. So Chichi has mentioned during the initial questions that she is African, and I'm really excited to talk about this just because I learned something in every single episode, but I think this will definitely be something that I will really take something away because I actually mentioned to Chi before we started recording that growing up, I didn't know anyone that was African. My first actual interaction with an African person, I don't think he knows that, but was Richard. If you want to go back and see Richard's episode, please do that. But I actually befriended a lot of African people, whether they were actually from Africa or of African descent, in like my freshman sophomore year of college, and that was the first time that I kind of realized that there might have been a slight dichotomy between African people and Black people. So, Chichi, do you feel that there is a dichotomy between Black people and African people? If so, like, what's your personal experience with it? And we can kind of start there.
There is. I mean, I can just use my personal experience when I came to Villanova to kind of explain what I think the dichotomy is. So when I first came to Villanova, I think in my year there's one other Nigerian international student. There are not that many. I think there are three international students from Africa. Me, OJ, and Leonly. I think that's about it. Um, so I mean, I wanted, and they're all guys. I was like, "Ugh, I need Black female friends. Like, I need to be around Black women." Um, so I mean, I quickly became friends with Amma and Stephanie. Those are some of my closest friends now. So Amma's Nigerian, Stephanie's Ghanaian. Those are my core friends. But I ventured into like BSU and other organizations like that. Just seeing other Black people from the States. Um, I know this will come as a surprise, but I never quite felt very welcome there. Um, I felt very judged. People made comments like, "Ugh, she's an international student, so she has to be wealthy. She's not even really Black, like, whatever." And I was like, what does that mean? Me being from Nigeria making me less Black? Like, it was a lot of things that, I tried to understand for myself that I didn't quite get. Um, I think also just generally like, so there's a lot of things about Black culture in the States like I didn't just understand or know, like stuff about like the food, the music, like slangs and stuff. Like many times my friends would talk and I'd be like, huh? Like I don't understand what that means. And they're like, what? Like you're a Black girl, like how don't you know what that means? And I was like, sorry, I don't know what that means. So I felt a little uncomfortable, not gonna lie. I didn't spend a lot of time hanging out with like BCS or going to most of the events. Um, because I didn't feel like I had a place there, to be honest. So I pretty much spent my time hanging out with Alma and Stephanie, to be
Mhm.
honest, because I could connect with them. They were also African. I felt welcome. I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel any of that. I think growing up in a country like Nigeria or just any like predominantly Black country, it's a different experience, versus someone who grew up in a country where they were repeatedly told by society like, oh, they didn't belong there. So I think
Mhm.
it shapes people in different ways. Um, I don't know if that's the reason why there's not it's not like an easy mesh between Africans and African Americans. I don't know. Um, but I'm trying to pick at the differences and like upbringings and stuff like that. But I will say it was tough. There was a lot of things I just couldn't. I couldn't connect with people on because I just didn't understand it. I didn't understand the way people did things because it just was not familiar to me.
Hmm.
So a lot of the black friends I do have now are like from the business school because like we could bond on business in
Hmm.
like our class like that. But to be honest, I don't have many black friends outside of the business school who are like not. Yeah, I just don't have many.
Except for
Um,
me.
well, exactly. Oh, well, you're not in Illinois anymore.
Yeah,
You're
no, I don't count anymore. But no,
graduating.
I think I like first the entire point of these episodes or this show or whatever it is just to talk about your personal experience. And it actually was not surprising to hear that. Um, I think the black community at Villanova was very interesting. Um,
Mhm.
and I can't necessarily apply my experiences with Villanova to everyone else because I don't know how other universities are, other PWIs. But I do think that there are gatekeepers within the Black community.
Mhm.
I feel comfortable for whatever reason based on their personal experiences, whether that be where they grew up, um,
Right.
their family structure, um, a variety of different things, but they feel comfortable that they kind of represent, the Black community, and anyone that doesn't necessarily fall into their
That category.
criteria, they kind of can make people feel uncomfortable. And like as a Black person that grew up here, I've felt very uncomfortable in Black spaces before. Um,
Mhm.
I think it was also interesting that you mentioned the slang thing because I think the cool thing about slang to me is that it varies wherever you're
Right.
from. So then for sometimes people to make you uncomfortable because you don't know the slang from a place that you're not from is like,
Right.
like just explain to me what it means and like then we can keep our conversation going. Like it doesn't have to be like a dramatic, huge thing. Um, but at least from my experience in interacting with the African friends that I've gained throughout my college career or journey was Black people from the States don't know their ethnicity for the most part. Um,
Mhm.
for, of course, a variety of reasons. Slavery kind of erased a lot of known history for us. So, like, for me,
Mhm.
the only thing I can really do is like um, do one of those DNA tests and hope for the best and just kind of believe it. But I think with a lot of my African friends, they very much identify with being African first. Like that is,
Mhm.
it's what they always were. And then, of course, in the context of the States, they learn, like, oh, okay, I'm also Black, but I'm African first.
Right.
And being African, you guys have a lot of different cultural things, whether that be food or clothing or um, music. And like, there's just a very, very rich culture that I've been able to appreciate in knowing these people and Black people have that as well. But I think Africans that are brought into the States, whether that be for school or anything else, really can technically have both. And I don't
Mm.
know why, like, the Black people that I've come in contact with feel kind of not necessarily uncomfortable with it, but like, that's, I think, where like that dissonance starts. And it's like, oh, okay, well, you have all these other things
Right.
instead of here. And especially with African people that are like first generation here and they grew up in their entire life, but they kind of had like that African culture at home
Right.
they learned growing up. And then they also grew up around either other Black people or learned that other Black culture while they were growing up too. So it's almost like you have these two cultures that you're trying to learn and find yourself within.
Right.
Both sides are kind of gatekeeping you.
It was a very. I think even looking back now, I think because of I guess the way I felt, I like very. I mean, to be honest, I think it had like an upside and a downside. So like freshman year, sophomore year, like I didn't really feel like I felt pretty much left out. Let me just put it like that. Like I didn't feel like I had like many Black friends. So I was like, I'm just gonna go to the library and study it because like I don't know where to go. So I mean that helped me because I did really well in school, but like at the same time, my social life was just non-existent. Like I'd go for Black parties or like the frat parties and stuff, and I didn't even understand any of the music that was playing. I was like, what is this? I'm not familiar with this at all. Um, it's like even the like, I think that it made me conscious of even trying to make friends. I was just like, well, I guess this is just not a culture I'm familiar with, and it doesn't seem like anyone's interested in helping me make this like a smooth transition. So I'm just going to back like out. And I'm again, I will say, like, even speaking from my siblings' experiences, because we all went to college in the States, they would pretty much say all the same thing, that like they didn't feel very welcome in the Black community, like African American community. So they just kind of hung on their own, did their own thing. Because I guess you're right about the gatekeeping thing, about how if you don't fit a certain category of what people think you should be as a Black person, then that's a problem. And I think particularly at like I know, like last year at the peak of the social unrest in America, like with the George Floyd killing, Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. I think for me, I mean, I am a Black person in the States, but I felt like I had so much to learn still, because I'd only lived there for 2 years. Um, so like I wasn't as vocal because I was like, I don't know what I'm speaking on yet, because this is not my lived experience, because I grew up mostly in Nigeria and I just moved here. So I want to learn. Um, and where I could, I went to protest, did all the stuff, but it was much more of a like, I took a much like, my stance was more like observation of some sort, because I just felt like I didn't have the knowledge or the wisdom to speak on most of these matters. Um, and people would say, "Oh, like you're not posting this, like you don't care about Black lives or all this stuff." I'm like, no, like I'm a Black person, yes, but I'm just as clueless because I just moved here. Like I don't. There's a lot I don't know. Like I can't speak to people's experiences about growing up in like different parts of America, being in elementary school, being the only Black person, XYZ, and what that did to your upbringing. I grew up in where everyone was Black. Um, so like sometimes even I may be ignorant with some things I say, not because, oh, you're a sellout as a Black person. No, it's because I still have a lot to learn. Um, and I think some people are more graceful in their reactions, and some others just, cut you off and say, "Oh, yeah, you're a fake Black person. Like we don't want to hang out with you," or anything like that. And I don't think that's fair. I think generally people should grant each other grace as they learn and navigate these spaces. I mean, obviously with respect and dignity, as is expected. But I think that's some of the issues I think I faced. There's a lot of things I just had no clue about, because those themes or those patterns were not present in my upbringing in Nigeria. Um, I think even for like even like then on the flip side, I did also, like when I moved to Villanova, I did get some ignorant questions about like being from like Africa or whatever, from other Black students like who were from the States. And that used to piss me off. Like, you're a Black person, you shouldn't say that to me. But then like in retrospect, I'm like, wait a minute, you also don't know a lot about this stuff. So like I think there a lot of grace needs to be granted on both sides, to learn, educate, and just understand really, the different perspectives, the different dynamics of, different cultures trying to build some sort of cohesion together. I think that would do a lot of, I think that would do a lot of helping, like, trying to bridge those communities together.
So do you think, so again, you're going to be graduating in May.
Mhm.
That'll make basically 4 years of being here. So have you felt a shift in what you consider your identity? Like when you introduce yourself, are you more cognizant of, oh, like in this space I'm Black, or do you still very much identify with like I'm African first and foremost?
I still very much identify myself as being like every time I introduce myself, I say I'm from Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like in most of the spaces, it's very clear when I'm Black. I think I understand what it means to be, Black and Nigerian, if that makes sense. Being Nigerian has its own heritage, its own culture, its own whatever. But again, you're bringing all that into the context of America. You're a Black person, and that too has its own um, that too has its own, I don't want to use the word baggage, but it has its own meaning also. So that's something I think I've internalized to the best of my abilities. Like it's something I'm aware of. I'm conscious of it. Like I wouldn't say I'm not a black person. Like I am. I think there was once, someone called me, oh, like, oh, you're African American. Like, and I always, that it made me feel almost guilty when someone said that to me. As like, I can't claim the struggles of what it means to have grown up in a country like America. Um, I grew up in Nigeria, and I think I talked about this with one of my professors. I was in a class the last semester called Race and Democratic Dignity. I tried to, give, like, that's why I don't like, it's like even when I'm filling up forms and it says, oh, Black or African American, I'm like, I feel like that they're usually like just grouped together. And I don't think that's always fair, in my opinion. I think there should be a difference in like people being able to like claim their own identity, because I think again, like growing up in a country like America, um, versus growing up in a country where it's predominantly black, I think there's different struggles, and I think people should be accorded rightly. I don't know. So it was just an interesting experience. Like I didn't like I do believe that we have a shared ancestry, and we should take pride in that, and we should look out for each other. But at the same time, like I do recognize a lot of things have happened in between those couple hundred years, and those should be recognized too. They shouldn't be just like something on the carpet. um, so yeah, I mean, in America, like I know I'm black. Like if anyone sees me walking on the road, it's no Nigerian is not written on my forehead, but everyone knows that I'm black. um, and that's something to understand. I think my deeper understanding of that, helped me learn that, in some spaces you are not safe as a black person. Um, and, I think if I had been in those spaces, say my freshman year when I just got in, I wouldn't have registered, oh, like you're a black person, like there, things could happen by you being in this space, being at the wrong place at the wrong time could be fatal. um, Especially in America. So I am fully aware of it. I think it's something I've come to understand. Like I did take a lot of classes around African American history when I entered Villanova, because I needed to understand that aspect of myself. I needed to understand what it meant to be black in America. I needed to understand the history. Because it's funny, like we weren't taught that in high school or in elementary school. Um, because it's like there is like the adage that if you know your history, then you kind of know yourself more. You walk with confidence. You walk with um so like a step to a walk is like I know my people. Like you can't you can't talk to me like that. Like come on, so it gave me a lot of it gave me a lot of um confidence in my identity as a black person in America.
I think it's really cool that you took the initiative upon yourself to actively try and take those classes, or even like during the, um, I mean, police killings happen all the time, but at least in March and April and May and June, that entire span of televised unrest, you did acknowledge like, oh, okay, like there is a lot of stuff that I can, learn, uh, but you still again actively understood that you are a black person, and it's okay to be black and have to learn things, because again I think the point of me having the show is to highlight that we are a community of people, but we're all individuals, so everyone's going to have their individual experiences, and nothing adds to or takes away from your blackness. um,
Exactly.
so I hearing that made me very happy because I actually didn't know that. But Chichi, is there anything else that you would want our viewers to know before this episode ends?
And I don't know what this year is going to bring. Like I don't think that I think I've seen so many posts on social media about 2021 is going to be the best year and all that stuff. But I feel a little I think okay, one, it can't just be the best year except you make like active um, life changes to unlock some sort of potential. But at the same time, I think it's going to be a difficult year in that we're still going through a pandemic. Um, there's a lot of political craziness going on like all over the world. So I think your parting words. I think everyone this year should grant yourself some grace. It's gonna be tough. But I think at the end of the day, surrounding yourself with people who, lift up your spirits and make you smile, I think will help us get through the year. And be proud of who you are, be proud of your blackness. Like I think there's so much beauty and there's so much richness and wealth from having an African ancestry or having Black ancestry. Especially, if you're familiar with our history in the world, like there's so much to be proud of. Um, so I guess in moments when your humanity is questioned because you're a Black person in a white space, I think I want people to remember that and remember that you're a human being and you're worthy of respect, dignity, love, um, and you should never forget that. And again, surround yourself with people who love you and who you love back, obviously. I think, I mean, Camille, you are one of those friends. Like every time we always have our little brunches with you and Sana, like those are things I look forward to because I'm like, oh, there's still beauty in this world. Like like it's not all horrible. So I think that's what I'll leave people with as they enter this new year. I think it's going to be tough because there's still, I think it always gets really ugly before it gets beautiful. Um, so yeah, grant yourself grace. It's going to be okay. And I guess also other plugs. So I'm in the business school, final year student. I also help people with interviewing. So if you're interested in a job, just let me know. Camille, give you my contact details. I could prep you. Um, I also run an NGO with my friend called Feed a Soul. We provide hot meals to homeless people over Christmas holidays. So on the 24th of December, we fed like 1,000 people across Nigeria, across Lagos, pretty much, not across Nigeria, because that's where we're pretty much located. But that's essentially what I have to say to everyone. Yeah, I'm super. I had a lot of fun being here. I feel like I just always talk so much and like always go off on a tangent. My apology. Um, but yeah, I think this is really good. I'm really excited that I got the chance to talk with you, Camille, about my experience being a Black person, being African, Nigerian, and learning to exist as all of those things in myself, and coming to understand what that means for myself, and still at the same time still being able to hold on to who I am as a person despite all those other identities and how they mix with the world. So yeah, thank you so much for giving me this platform. And also, I just wrote my first Medium article. It's gonna be on my Instagram. You should give it a read. I'll be posting it like maybe tomorrow or next or something. But I'm really
Okay.
excited. Um, I've been meaning to write this for like a year and a half, and I finally wrote it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna put all of these good things in the description box,
Okay.
where you can find Chi Chi on social medias, NGO, um, the Find a Job resume review platform, and also the article now because I didn't know that was a thing. So all those beautiful things will be in the description box. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, Chi Chi.
Of course.
Again, I've learned so much whenever I talk to you, but I've learned so much today, and I think this will be really beneficial to all the viewers, but specifically to Black people in our community. So,
Yeah.
for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
All
Bye.
right. See.